I used to think childhood ended when you blew out your 18th birthday candles or when you packed your first suitcase for college. But mine ended much earlier. It ended the morning I came back to the old white house on Willow Creek, the house that seemed to breathe with memories I didn't remember living. I hadn't planned to return. I hadn't even planned to look back. But when I got the call that my father had fallen ill, the kind of ill that sounded more like a warning than an update, I couldn't ignore it. So I flew home after 7 years of silence, carrying only a weekend bag and a stomach full of dread. The driveway hadn't changed much. Same cracked cement, same leaning mailbox. But the house felt different, as if it had been watching the road for me every day since I left. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Emily," she said, her voice thin but urgent, as if she were relieved and terrified at the same time. Seeing her again felt like touching fire, familiar but burning. She hugged me tightly, too tightly, like she was afraid I'd vanish again. Inside, the house smelled the same. Lemon polish and old secrets. Every step I took down the hallway felt like an echo of a life I'd abandoned but never fully understood. The picture frames hadn't moved. The dust had gathered, but the arrangement was untouched. It was like I'd walked into a memory instead of my parents' home. But my father was not waiting in his usual armchair by the window. He wasn't sitting with a newspaper folded on his knee. Instead, he was upstairs, lying in his room with curtains drawn, like the sun itself had been asked to stay away. When I finally stepped into his room, he looked smaller than I remembered, fragile like a man who had carried too much for too long. "Dad?" I whispered. His eyes opened slowly. They softened when they saw me. "You came back," he murmured, almost in disbelief. "Of course I did," I lied, because the truth was I wouldn't have come if something inside me hadn't been restless ever since the call. He tried to sit up, but his hand slipped. I caught it, and for the first time in years, he let me hold it. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. My heart tightened. Was this going to be one of those final confessions people made before letting go? But before he could continue, my mother appeared in the doorway. "Not now," she said sharply, too sharply. Her eyes flicked from him to me, and something cold settled in my stomach. Dad exhaled shakily. "Emily, forgive me," he whispered. "For what?" I asked. My mother cut in, stepping closer. "He's tired. He's confused. Don't let him worry you with nonsense." But it wasn't nonsense. I could feel it. My father wasn't confused. He was scared. And the way my mother blocked him, the way she refused to let him speak, it was like she was guarding a vault I didn't know existed. That was the moment I realized something was deeply, dangerously wrong in this house. I hadn't even been home for an hour, and already the walls felt like they were hiding something from me. Something big, something heavy, something meant to stay buried. But the house remembered, and I was starting to remember too. But I didn't know that before the night ended, I would discover the first crack in the lie my family had protected for years, one that would shatter everything I believed about who I was. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of jet lag, not because of the uncomfortable, forgotten mattress in my childhood room.
but because of the feeling that the house was breathing around me, like it had things to say, like it had watched my life unfold wrong and was waiting for me to notice. My father's whisper wouldn't leave my head. Forgive me. Forgive him for what? What could he have possibly done that made my mother so desperate to silence him? Around midnight, after staring at the ceiling for hours, I finally got up. The hallway was dark, except for a small lamp glowing near the stairs. I expected everything to be still, silent, but the wooden floor creaked under my feet as if it recognized me. I walked toward the living room, drawn by something I couldn't name. The shelves were lined with the same photo albums my mother used to guard like treasures, but now they looked almost too organized, too curated, like a museum exhibit specifically arranged to show only what she wanted seen. It made me curious in a way I hadn't felt in years. I pulled down the oldest album, the one with the cracked leather cover. It used to be my favorite when I was little. I remembered flipping through it on rainy afternoons, tracing faces with my tiny fingers. But something strange hit me immediately. The album felt lighter, pages pressed too tightly together, pictures missing. I opened it. The first few pages were normal: birthdays, holidays, messy toddler pictures. But halfway through, I noticed blank spaces, rectangular impressions where photos had once been. Removed, carefully. I turned another page. More missing photos. Why would she remove pieces of my childhood? One picture was left, though, a single one she apparently forgot to take out. It nearly stopped my breathing. It was a photo of me around 8 years old, standing in our backyard. My father was behind me, smiling gently with a hand on my shoulder. But on the other side of me was a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair, soft eyes, a warmth in her face that pulled at something deep inside me, something that felt like grief. Except the grief made no sense. I had no idea who she was. Or, at least, I thought I didn't. Something about her felt painfully familiar. Instinctively, I lifted the picture toward the lamp. That's when I noticed the edges, torn, uneven, like the photo had once been larger and someone had ripped another person out entirely. Or maybe someone had ripped this woman away from every other photo. Put that down. My heart leapt out of my chest as my mother appeared behind me. I hadn't even heard her footsteps. Her eyes weren't tired anymore. They were sharp, alert, angry. She demanded, "What are you doing with that?" I said I found it in the album. Why did you remove all the others? Her jaw tightened. Because they weren't important. Who is she? I asked, pointing to the woman in the photo. My mother didn't blink. Nobody. Nobody. The way she said it was too quick, too rehearsed. "Mom," I whispered, "Dad was trying to tell me something, and you stopped him." Her face went cold. "Your father is sick. His mind wanders. Don't encourage it." But the way she reached for the photo, fast, almost panicked, told me everything I needed to know. I stepped back, refusing to let her take it. "She meant something," I said. "I can see it in his face, in mine. Why hide her?" My mother's voice dropped into something icy and final. "Emily, some things were buried for a reason." Then she turned, leaving me alone with the photograph burning in my hand. But I didn't believe her anymore, not after seeing the fear in her eyes. I didn't know it yet, but that torn photograph wasn't just a memory someone tried to erase. It was the first piece of the truth about my real family, and the next clue was hidden in a place I never thought I'd look.
I barely slept after my confrontation with my mother. I kept the photo tucked under my pillow like it might disappear if I let it out of my sight. Every time I closed my eyes, the woman's face flashed behind my eyelids, gentle, familiar, and completely missing from every memory I thought I had. Morning sunlight crawled too slowly across my ceiling, painting my room in faded yellow. I felt like a stranger in my own childhood space, surrounded by toys, books, and posters meant for a girl who hadn't existed in years. By the time I went downstairs, my mother was already in the kitchen, clattering pans loudly, too loudly. A warning or a distraction, I couldn't tell. "Good morning," she said, without looking at me. "Morning." I waited. She didn't ask about the photo. She didn't mention last night. It was like she'd erased the entire argument from her script. But I hadn't. After breakfast, when she left to run errands, I felt the house exhale, like it had been holding its breath, like it was giving me permission. My father was asleep, his chest rising and falling weakly. I kissed his forehead, whispering that I'd be back soon, and that I'd find whatever he needed me to know. Then I went upstairs, all the way up, to the attic. The wooden stairs squeaked beneath me with each step, loud enough to make my pulse break rhythm. The attic door stuck at first, swollen from years of humidity, but when it finally gave way, a gust of dust and old air hit my face. The attic always felt like a forgotten time capsule, boxes slumped in corners, old clothes draped over broken furniture, Christmas decorations peeking from behind suitcases. But something felt different now. I noticed a stack of boxes pushed awkwardly against one wall, as though someone had moved things in a hurry. As I walked closer, my foot bumped into something small and metallic. A lock. A broken lock. My breath caught. I followed where it must have come from until I saw it. A wooden storage box, medium-sized, with rusted hinges and a split along one side. Its lid was slightly open, just slightly, as if someone had tried to secure it and failed. I knelt down and lifted the lid. Inside were papers, old letters, yellowed at the edges, and a small stack of photographs tied with a faded ribbon. My hands trembled as I untied it. The first photo made the room tilt. It was the same woman from the picture downstairs, holding me as a baby. Not a stranger, not a random person. The way she looked at me, pure, aching love, it carved through me like a blade. On the backside of the photograph, in neat cursive handwriting, were 4 words that turned my blood to ice. My Emily, my daughter. I swallowed hard, flipping to the next photo. There she was again, smiling, younger, standing next to my father. My father's arm was around her waist. She wasn't some stranger. She wasn't a nanny. She wasn't a family friend. And she was definitely not nobody. I kept searching, my heartbeat thundering as I reached a sealed envelope at the bottom of the box. My name was written on it, Emily, but the handwriting wasn't my mother's or my father's. It was hers, my real mother's. My fingers shook as I slipped a nail under the flap to open it, but the attic stairs creaked. I froze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy, coming up the staircase. My throat tightened. Someone else knew I was here, and they were coming. And in that moment, clutching the envelope addressed to me, I realized that the truth wasn't just buried in the attic. Someone in this house was willing to do anything to keep me from opening it. The footsteps on the attic stairs were too slow, too careful, not the hurried shuffle of someone who'd forgotten something, not my father, he could barely get out of bed, and not my mother, she never moved silently. This was different, almost watchful. I quickly slid the envelope inside my jacket and pushed the box's lid shut, dust puffing into the air. My pulse hammered as I backed away from the corner, trying not to look like someone who had just uncovered 20 years' worth of secrets. The attic door creaked open. My mother's face appeared in the doorway, expression tight, lips pressed into a thin line. "What are you doing up here?" she asked, her voice calm but unnervingly flat. "I was just looking for my old things," I replied, matching her tone as evenly as I could. Her eyes scanned the room, scanned me, then drifted to the box. Barely, but enough for me to notice. Her breath hitched. "Leave those alone." It wasn't a request, it was a command wrapped in fear. "Why?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "What's inside them that scares you this much?" She stepped fully into the attic, closing the door behind her. The click of the door settling into the frame made the attic feel 5 degrees colder. "Emily, your father is ill. His mind has been slipping for years. None of the things you think you're finding are real." "That's not true," I said sharply. "The woman in the photos, she's not nobody, and she wrote to me. I saw the envelope." Her expression flickered, anger, sorrow, and something like panic. "Give it to me," she said quietly. "I don't have it." "Emily," her voice dropped. "Give me the envelope." I stood my ground. My legs shook, but I stood. She exhaled slowly, frustrated. "Your father wanted to protect you from the past, from her. That woman destroyed our family." My chest tightened. Who was she? Tell me the truth. But my mother didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked out, slamming the attic door so hard the dust rattled from the rafters. I waited until her footsteps faded before I finally let myself breathe again. Once the silence settled, I pulled out the envelope. It felt heavier than paper should. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, folded once, soft from time, written in the same graceful handwriting I'd seen on the back of the photograph. I unfolded it slowly. "Dearest Emily, if you're reading this, it means the truth has finally found you." My throat tightened. "I have loved you from the moment I held you in my arms, but your father and I made a mistake, one that your stepmother has spent years trying to erase." Stepmother? The words punched the air out of my lungs. I read on, heart pounding. "I never wanted to leave you. I fought to stay, but I was pushed out of your life, and I was forced to disappear. Not because I was dangerous, but because I knew too much." Knew too much? About what?
I scanned the rest, hands trembling so badly the paper shook. If they tell you I was unstable, don't believe them. If they say I abandoned you, don't believe them. I loved you more than my own life, and the truth, when you uncover it, will explain everything. My vision blurred. Find the lockbox. He hid it under the floorboard in his study. The study? My father's sanctuary, the room my mother never let me enter as a child. Inside is the real story of your childhood, the betrayal that tore us apart, and the reason I had to disappear. I swallowed hard, heart thundering. I hope one day you will understand why I had to let you go. Your mother, Anna. Anna, my real mother. The name echoed in my chest like a memory trying to come back to life. My knees felt weak, my palms were wet, the attic spun around me. Everything I had ever believed about my family was a lie, and the truth was sitting in a lockbox under the study floor. But I didn't know that getting into the study would be the easy part. What waited inside that lockbox would unravel my entire childhood and expose the darkest secret my family had ever kept.
I must have read my mother's letter 10 times before I could stand again. Each sentence felt like a blow to my chest, truth cracking through the lies I'd grown up living. Anna, my real mother, not missing, not dead, erased. My hands were still trembling when I left the attic. I closed the door gently, as if the secrets inside could spill out if I wasn't careful. The hallway felt colder than before, shadows stretching longer, like the house itself knew things were shifting. The study was downstairs, tucked behind the living room, a room I was never allowed in as a child. My mother always claimed it was too cluttered or too dangerous, but the real reason was obvious now, because it held the one thing they couldn't afford for me to find. When I reached the door, I hesitated, not out of fear, but out of realization. After this, nothing would ever go back to the way it was. I pushed the door open. Dust motes swirled in the air as sunlight streamed through the curtains. The room smelled like old wood and my father's cologne. The bookshelves were lined with binders, documents, and journals. His desk was cluttered with old receipts, folded newspapers, and pens that had long since dried out. It felt like stepping into the mind of someone who'd spent years hiding something heavy. My heart thudded as I knelt beside the corner floorboard. I searched for any sign, loose edges, uneven slats, something that didn't match the rest. After a few minutes of running my fingers along the wood, I found it. One board that moved just slightly when I pressed down. My pulse quickened. I grabbed a letter opener from the desk drawer and slid it under the edge, prying gently until the board lifted. Dust floated up. Underneath, wrapped in a layer of old cloth, was a small metal lockbox, blackened with age, the corners dented as if someone had tried to break it open long ago. I lifted it out slowly. It was heavier than I expected. My fingers brushed over the rusted lock. It wasn't strong. Years of neglect had weakened it. I pressed my thumbs under the latch and pushed. It snapped open. Inside were folders, documents, and at the very bottom another photograph. My heart stuttered when I saw it. It wasn't Anna this time. It was my father, standing with another man I didn't recognize. Tall, suited, hand on my father's shoulder like they were partners. Enemies, something worse.
I set the photo aside and opened the first folder. Inside were hospital forms, medical records, signed custody agreements, but not between my father and my mother, between my father and a facility I'd never heard of, Rosebridge Behavioral Institute. My breath caught. Why would they need custody agreements with a psychiatric institution? My eyes skimmed the next sheet. Patient Anna Pierce. Status admitted involuntarily. Reason potential threat to child. My stomach twisted painfully. This was a lie. It had to be. Anna's letter made it clear she hadn't been unstable. She had been silenced. I flipped through the documents, each more horrifying than the last. Reports filed by someone with shaky handwriting, but that someone wasn't Anna. They were signed by my mother. She had filed the complaints. She had called the psychiatrists. She had testified that Anna was dangerous. She had pushed to have her institutionalized. My hands went cold. At the bottom of the box was another envelope, unopened, taped shut. The handwriting on it was shaky, uneven, familiar. My father's. I tore it open. Inside was a short note. Emily, if you're reading this, then I failed to protect you from the lies. Your mother didn't disappear. She was taken, and I let it happen. The words blurred as tears stung my eyes. Forgive me, your father. My breath shook. Taken, locked away because of a lie my stepmother created. Everything I believed about my family was a manufactured story based on betrayal, fear, and manipulation. And I wasn't done uncovering the truth, not even close. Because while I was still gripping my father's letter with shaking hands, the study door suddenly creaked shut, and I realized I wasn't alone in the room anymore.
The study door clicked shut with a soft finality that froze every muscle in my body. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but then I felt it, a presence behind me, the kind of silence that presses against your back like a shadow. Slowly, I turned. My mother stood in front of the closed door. Her posture was stiff, controlled. Her eyes were unreadable, but the tension in her jaw told me everything. She knew. She knew I had found the lockbox. She knew I had found the truth. And she was done pretending. "What?" she said in a dangerously calm voice. "Do you think you're doing?" I held the papers to my chest, my heartbeat thundering. "I found out what you did." She stepped closer, her face tightening. "You went into his study after I told you not to." I swallowed. "You lied to me. You lied my whole life." She let out a soft, humorless laugh. Children always say that when they hear a version of the truth they don't like. "No," I snapped, voice shaking. "Don't twist this. You sent my real mother away. You destroyed her." Her eyes flashed. Anger? Guilt? Something darker. "I saved you." My breath caught. Saved me from what? "From her," she shouted, the mask cracking. "From a woman who would have ruined you." I shook my head, stepping back. "No, that's not what these papers say. She wasn't unstable. You made her look unstable."
I did what your father was too weak to do. He couldn't protect you. He couldn't see how dangerous she was becoming. Dangerous how? I demanded. She paused, and for the first time, a tremor flickered through her. She wanted custody, she whispered. Full custody. She was going to take you away from us, from this house, from your father. That's not dangerous, I said softly. That's being a mother. Her expression hardened. No, you don't understand. She wasn't supposed to exist in his life anymore. She wasn't supposed to come back and claim you. Something clicked in my mind. Claim me? I repeated slowly. What does that mean? My mother's breath hitched, so small I barely caught it. You weren't supposed to know. What? My voice was barely a whisper. A long silence filled the room. Then she said it. You weren't hers to claim. I felt the floor slip beneath me. What are you talking about? You weren't supposed to be her child, she said, each word slow and deliberate. You were supposed to be mine. My ears rang. She kept going, voice rising. She was the surrogate. The agreement was clear. She would carry the baby, and then she would walk away. But she didn't. She became attached, obsessed. She wanted to keep you. I staggered back, gripping the desk. No, this can't be true. The letter, she called me her daughter. She lied to you, my mother cried. She lied to all of us. She broke into our home. She took you from your crib. She tried to run with you. We had to call the police and— Stop! I screamed, hands shaking violently. Just stop! My mother's chest heaved. Her face was flushed with a mixture of rage and desperation. I stared at her, tears burning down my cheeks. So the truth is, you institutionalized her because she didn't agree to give me up? She went against the contract. Actions have consequences. That's not consequences. That's cruelty. That's stealing someone's life. She tried to steal you, she snapped. And you succeeded, I said, voice cracking. You stole my entire life. We stared at each other, two people standing on opposite sides of a lie that had shaped my entire existence. Then my mother stepped closer, voice dangerously soft. You don't understand how much I sacrificed for you. No, I said. You sacrificed her, and you lied to me. My mother opened her mouth to respond, but footsteps thudded down the hallway. Not hers, not mine, my father's. Weak, wavering, but determined. He appeared at the doorway, gripping the frame. Emily, he rasped, shaking. Please listen to me. My breath hitched. He was pale, sweating. His knees wobbled as he staggered into the room. I need to tell you the truth, he whispered. My mother's face drained of color. Don't, she said sharply. You're too sick. You don't know what you're saying. But he met my eyes, and nothing in his expression looked confused. Nothing looked clouded. Everything looked heartbreakingly clear. And in that moment, standing between the woman who raised me and the man who had finally decided to speak, I knew the final truth was coming. But I wasn't prepared for how violently it would break everything I thought I knew.
My father leaned heavily against the doorframe, his breath shallow, sweat beading along his hairline. But his eyes, those soft, tired eyes I had grown up trusting, were sharper than I had seen in years. "Emily," he said again, voice cracking. "Sit, please." I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the floor, my heart thundering like it was trying to escape my chest. My mother stood rigid beside me, her arms folded tightly across her body, jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. My father stepped toward us and nearly collapsed, but I rushed to him, grabbing his arm. He squeezed my hand, weakly but with intention. "Don't believe everything she said," he whispered. My mother inhaled sharply. "David, stop! You're not well. You don't know what you're talking about." But he did. I saw it in the way he looked at her, tired, defeated, but determined. "No more lying, Claire," he said. Her face drained of color. He turned to me. "Emily, Anna was your mother." My chest tightened painfully. Then why did she write that she was forced out? Why did Mom, I corrected myself, Claire, put her away? My father's gaze dropped, shame flooding his features. "Because I let her." Claire stiffened. "David, you don't dare put this on me." He didn't look at her. He looked only at me. "Your mother was not a surrogate," he said softly. "We lied to you, to everyone. We were never able to have a child, not together. But Anna, she was someone I loved long before Claire, someone I left because I was too young and too stupid to understand what love really was." His voice cracked. "When Anna told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I had already promised Claire we would build a life together, and Claire," he hesitated, "was not willing to accept a child that wasn't hers." Claire's glare hardened into something cold and venomous. "You're twisting the story, David." But he shook his head. "No, I'm finally telling it." My throat felt tight. "So what happened?" He sank heavily into the study chair, gripping the armrest like it was the only thing keeping him from collapsing. "I suggested we raise you together," he said. "All three of us. I thought we could make it work." His voice broke. But Claire said it was her family or none at all. She refused to be second to anyone, especially Anna. My mother stepped forward. "I did what any wife would do." "No," I snapped. "You did what a threatened, jealous woman would do." Her eyes flashed. My father continued. "Anna tried to stay in your life. She tried to visit, write, call. Claire intercepted everything, every letter, every phone call. She told Anna that if she didn't disappear, she'd take you away for good, through the courts, through lies, through anything." I felt bile rise in my throat. "So the psychiatric reports?" My father placed a trembling hand over his eyes, as if he couldn't bear to see my reaction. "Forged, pressured, manipulated. Claire convinced the doctors there was a danger. I didn't fight hard enough." Claire's voice rose, brittle and shrill. "Because you knew she was unstable. You knew she was obsessed." My father looked at her, not with anger, but with profound sorrow.
She was a mother, and you broke her. Silence swallowed the room, the kind of silence that has weight, the kind that feels like the moment before a storm hits. I stepped back, feeling everything inside me, my childhood, my identity, my memories splintering like glass. "You stole me from her," I whispered to Claire. "You stole her life, and you made me spend mine loving a lie." Her face glistened, not with regret, but with fury. "I raised you, I fed you, I gave you everything. You gave me nothing true. You gave me a fabricated childhood and a missing mother." She opened her mouth to retort, but my father's body suddenly sagged forward. "Dad!" I grabbed him before he fell. His breath was shallow, his face ashen. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Find her. She deserves her daughter back." I held him tightly as he slipped into unconsciousness. Claire didn't move. She just stood there, shaking, not for worry for him, but for the dawning realization that her lies were finally collapsing. I looked at her one last time. "I'm leaving, and when I walk out that door, your version of my life ends forever." Her face crumpled, not in sorrow, but in fear, because she knew I meant it. Epilogue, short. 3 days later, I found Anna, alive, fragile, still carrying the weight of the life stolen from her. And when she looked at me, really looked at me, it felt like the moment my childhood finally came back. Not the one I lived, but the one I should have had. But this wasn't the end of my story. Finding my real mother was only the beginning, and the truth was about to unravel not only my past, but my entire future.